So now it's time for us to turn our attention to the author and see what he has to say about the development of ethical concerns in the use of animals in biomedical research from past to present. Let's first begin with a historical perspective. Actually, the dissection of living animals was described in Greek writings as early as 500 BC. It is believed that the most influential figure in the medical sciences, Galen, performed experiments involving animals. Vivisection, the performing of surgical experiments on live animals, were used to test a specific hypothesis and explore competing explanations of biological phenomena. Then, animal vivisection was used as an important way to study anatomical structures and their functioning by physician researchers such as Andrea Vesalius and William Harvey. At this time, there are no philosophical or moral objections. There is clear moral consensus that animal experimentation is justifiable in light of the potential benefits they bring to human beings. So next, let's get familiar with these famous names. Galen. He is actually a prominent Roman physician, surgeon, and philosopher. He promoted understanding of numerous scientific disciplines, including anatomy, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, and neurology, as well as philosophy and logic. The next big name is Andrea Vesalius. He is a Flemish anatomist, a physician. He is actually the founder of modern human anatomy, and he is also author of one of the most influential books on human anatomy, that is, On the Structure of the Human Body. And the last figure at this period is called William Harvey. He is actually an English physician, and he actually gave a complete and detailed description of the systemic circulation and properties of blood being pumped to the body by the heart. So, what follows is actually the early modern period. The Cartesian notion provides philosophical justification for animal experiment. Animals, as perceived by these philosophers, are incapable of experiencing pain or pleasure. So, according to them, for the advancement of medicine, it is acceptable to experiment on animals. But actually, these beliefs are shortly challenged by the utilitarians. Philosophers like Jeremy Bentham questioned whether animals truly lacked the capacity to experience pain or pleasure. If all pain and suffering was important in the assessment of the moral righteousness of an action, then morally correct actions should maximize pleasure and minimize pain, including pain and suffering that might be experienced by animals. So in 1876, the first regulation governing the use of animals in biomedical research, Cruelty to Animals Act, was established, requiring the use of anesthetics to reduce suffering on animals for many types of animal experimentation. However, further support for animal research also emerged. Advances in immunology and infectious disease have shown that the use of animals in modern medicine could result in significant improvements in human health. So let's learn a little bit more about this philosopher here, Jeremy Bentham. He is an English philosopher, jurist, and social reformer. He is actually the founder of modern utilitarianism, and he advocated individual and economic freedom, the separation of church and state, and also freedom of expression. The utilitarianism actually advocate the use of animals, but they emphasize that we should reduce the suffering of these animals and maximize the pleasure experienced by them. And they are different from the next perspective, that is, anti-speciesists. So with the advance of medical science also come another new moral perspective. It now seems that most animals have a variety of psychological experiences, including those of pain, pleasure, and other emotional states. So, if human psychological states are important for assessing an action's moral acceptability, why is animal experiences treated differently? This differential treatment actually violates the rights of the experiment animals, and it is actually a kind of speciesism. That is, we treat animals differently because they are animals, not human beings. And in this way, we ignore their psychological experiences. Like racism, this is unfair. So anti-speciesism actually is a rights-based argument. They think that animals possess these cognitive faculties and that guarantees them to have a membership in a moral community. And with the moral community and also a moral membership comes their moral rights. So they enjoy the right to be treated equally as humans. Although the moral debate continues to evolve, we can see that it is very difficult to forsake using animals in experiments. So instead of debating over whether we should use animals or not, it's better for us to focus on three prominent themes in the future. So this leads us to the prospective view about animal experimentation. The three themes that are emerging are actually, first, the rise of radical animal rights organizations, and second, institutional commitments. We should urge institutions to be committed to upholding these regulations that has been there for several decades. And also, lastly, regulatory vigilance. So instead of discussing whether it's ethical or not, it's more important to increase regulatory vigilance and make sure that researchers observe these regulations. So, we have taken a tour in history about the ethical issues in animal experimentation. How about we examine these ideas in details?